Good morning, welcome back to the channel. Sunday morning, and I'm doing a brief video for those of you that use Sony equipment. I use Sony, and I've come to grips with some of the rather idiosyncratic behaviour of the Sony menu system, and I thought I'd pass on a piece of advice, or at least present a piece of information which might help some of you guys if you're running with Sony. Now, my problem is that I shoot mainly landscape. But when I want to shoot action like the pets or children running or something like that, I need to switch modes quite quickly, and that's not just a case of switching from aperture priority to shutter priority. It's more about actually using the customized settings. There are 3 customized settings, and I'll just point you at those. Just bear with me a second. Okay, here I've got my A7R4 set up on the tripod so that I can demonstrate what it is that I'm going to set and why I want to set it. So I've got this little vlogging camera here pointing straight at the rear screen, and at the moment I've got a lens cap on, so there's no image to be seen. If I can get that off, which I can't, I'll take that off. You can see it's pointing off into the other side of the room, so we don't need to be able to see that necessarily to demonstrate what I'm going to talk about. Now, on top here, if I just tip this forward, you'll see we've got a mode dial with the standard settings of aperture, program mode, aperture, shutter and manual, and then there are 3 further settings, 1, 2 and 3. Now those 3 custom settings or positions can be programmed to basically take you through to a preset set of menu items already configured for you. Now how it works is basically set the normal mode that you want to operate, or set a set of settings for, in this case, aperture priority, and then customize what it is you want to customize. In this case, I've got a 10-second timer, which I don't want. I want a 2-second timer. So if I wind that to 2 seconds, and if I want a default aperture setting of f8, let's say, because it's landscape normally that I want to set up for, so f8, and I want ISO to be as low as possible, ISO 50. So I've now got aperture priority mode set, as shown here. A here as well, obviously, on the mode dial I've got A set, and I've got 50 ISO set, and I've got F8 set. Now how this works is, what we next do is we go into the menu system and we go to menu item 1, and it's the 3rd button along the 3rd page, so starting at the 1st page, 2nd page, 3rd page, and at the bottom here there's an option which is memory. Now what we need to do is we need to register those settings against number 1 on the top here. So what I do is I specify number 1 here, 2 or 3, so it's number 1, press the button to adjust it, and it registers that set of settings as allocated to this particular number here. So if I now switch round to number 1, what we'll see is it'll briefly put a page up showing what's set, and it's got 2-second timer, it's got ISO automatic, sorry, ISO 50 should be showing there somewhere, ISO 50, and F8, which is what I just set up. So every time I go from a different mode into mode 1, those parameters are already set up as the default. I can still alter them, of course. I can still go to a different F number, and I can still change the ISO, and I can still change the exposure compensation, but every time I go back to number 1, it will default to those values. Now I've got number 1 set up for landscape, which those are the basic starting points that I want, but number 2 I've got set up for sports and activity, and in this case it's defaulting to shutter speed priority, of which I've got a default of 1,000th. ISO is automatic because I just basically want to have the shutter speed as high as possible, and again I can change it if I want to, and I've got metering mode set to autofocus continuous, as shown here. I've got focus points across the whole screen. I've got automatic face detection on, and I've also got ISO auto, and that's about, there's no other compensation set up. and I've got automatic white balance. Dynamic range optimization is off, and the metering mode up here in the top right corner is center weighted. So if I'm photographing an aeroplane or somebody running, I want them to be in the center of the picture, and I want a high enough shutter speed to capture the action, and so on and so forth. So I can switch back to number 1 when I want to do some landscape, and I'm back in aperture priority mode, 2-second timer. I've got the focus mode set to wide area, and I've also got autofocusing recognizing faces, and I've got metering mode set to highlight protection mode, hence the little plus in the top right hand corner, so I don't blow out any highlights anywhere in the picture. Default 50 ISO and f8. Nothing else is set up. I've also got white balance set to daylight, because landscape's normally done outside, therefore daylight seems to be the most appropriate setting. So I don't know if that's actually helpful to anyone. A lot of Sonys have these options on them, even the smaller ones, and it might be helpful just to understand that they're useful. I find it incredibly useful to be able to switch between these various modes just for the sake of switching here. I've also got mode number 3 custom option set to completely manual, autofocus, continuous, highlight protection, daylight, and so on. So obviously we all have preferences, and we're all different in what we actually want to have set up and configured on our cameras, and obviously this is very specific to Sony. Being a Sony user, and I've spent some time learning these little idiosyncrasies, and I find it very helpful, and hopefully any of you out there with Sony that have been struggling with the way some of the settings are set up, this might help you as well. So anyway, it was only a short video. I hope you found it useful, and I'll see you on the next video. Thank you very much for watching.